Hello, and welcome to Half Hour Call, the podcast where we talk about live theater, TV, film, basically entertainment in general. I'm your host, Rich Kless. Today, we are going to finish up our interview with actor and filmmaker J.R. Rodriguez. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the rest of this episode.
Or remember yesterday.
Okay. So transitioning now. So you get Remember Yesterday done.
Yeah.
But where do you go from there? You're like,
I sent it to a few festivals, and it's a rom-com. So I sent it to the Florence Romance International Film Festival in Florence, Italy, and the director of the film, or the director of the festival, he actually called me up. He's like, we'd like to have you attend because you're one of the top three. And I said, okay. So sure, why not? Unfortunately, my sister came to. My father had just turned to like the second stage of dementia. So my sister came down to take care of my dad while I was going to be in Italy for 6 days to see the film. Okay, this is the story, a little offshoot. So I have to fly to Munich. And then I'll fly into Florence, right? So I fly into Munich. I have my layover, and then I call Ann Cossack Quattrini, who lives there now, and I said, okay, I'm on my way to Florence. She's like, oh, that's great, that's wonderful. I love the movie. I'm like, what movie did you love? And she said, I loved Remember Yesterday. I thought it was great. I'm like, perchance, where did you see it?
Right.
She said, I saw it at the festival, man. You won. I'm like, what do you mean I won?
I just
She's like,
got here.
The festival, it was great. They moved your time up, but the judges loved it. They're looking forward to meeting you. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? So I flew all the way to Florence to not see my movie.
There you go.
But I got 5 great days in Florence. You know
how it ended. It's okay,
right? But I was very lucky. And then when I got home, John and I were trying to find platforms. John Landau and I were trying to find platforms to put it on. And Steve, I can't remember Steve's last name. He's over at Stone Theaters. I love Stone Theaters. They love independent film, which is great. This is a movie theater, but they love independent film. And Steve said, why don't you show it here? Because we were looking for like streaming platforms.
right?
And he says, why don't you show it here? So we had this big to-do, this big thing out of it. It was uncomfortable for me. But we had this big premiere at Stone Theaters, and it was priceless. It was beautiful. And then 3 days after we screened it at Stone Theaters, Gravitas called me.
Okay.
Gravitas Ventures. They called and said, we want your movie. And I'm like, are you serious? And Gravitas, you turn on Netflix or Amazon, and Gravitas is like the end of everything that's on it, right? I'm like, are you serious? They're like, yeah, we want to show your movie. And so I signed a 3-year contract, and now, especially this month would be great to see Remember Yesterday on all the streaming platforms.
Okay.
And after that, I had written, the first one I wrote was terrible. It was like a modern day telling of Atticus Finch. And I asked Louise Coggins, whose husband is a big power lawyer here in town, and she was the head of the Democratic Party for a while. I asked her to read it. She's like, do you know A Safe Place? And I said, no. And she introduced me to Don Ferrer, who was the head of A Safe Place at the time. And I learned all about human trafficking. And that's how I wrote Prophets. Okay. Prophets was a lot of people are scared of Prophets because it is really dark, but it tells the story of Wilmington's human trafficking problem. We're the smallest county in North Carolina, and we have the third highest rate of human trafficking in the state. That's obscene.
Yeah, it is. It is.
And so I had met this young actress who's on the series The Runarounds. It's coming out, I think, in the fall. Jonas Pate thing. Jonas Pate is Outer Banks, and she's one of the leads in it.
Right.
She had done a youth production of Into the Woods for me, and I just thought she was an interesting actress. And so I knew it wasn't going to be picked up anytime soon. I made the lead character, who just graduates from a police academy. I based it on her, and not only her kindness, but her awareness. If somebody 17 years old at the time when I was writing it should not be that aware of themselves.
Right.
And Marley was. She's quite special. Now Prophets we're trying to get that set up somewhere.
Okay. So. And he talk to us about the other one. I want to hear a little bit about ILM Transport. I hadn't heard about that one at all.
ILM Transport is, I had just finished either Front Street or Lynx. I think I had finished the pilot for Lynx, which is about a female spy that works in a diner with her Puerto Rican family. I wonder where I got that from. Anyway, I was having lunch with Troy Rudisell. I think it was my birthday lunch. I think he took me out for my birthday. This is like 3 years ago. And he and our buddy Michael Jones, they own this medical transport company.
Okay.
And Troy tells me this story about this weird guy they had to take to Jacksonville, because he's a veteran, I think. And he sat with his arm, he's like a vampire.
Okay.
And he went on this whole, I'm like, that's just bizarre. He's like, let me tell you something. Michael and I say it all the time. We should write a TV pilot. There was a long pause as he stared at me the whole time. So basically he was saying, JR, you should write us a television pilot.
Right. Get on it.
And so I did. And Troy was not the first one to read it. Troy nor Michael were the first one to read it. I sent it to Ron Fallica, who owns Actors Arsenal, which is an acting school here in town. And he and his wife they're up the level as far as actors go. Ron wrote me an email back. He's like, this is hysterical. He's like, this can't be true. I'm like, every word of that thing is true based on what Troy Rudisell told me.
Right.
He's like, get the hell out. I'm like, and so that's what it's about. It's about how bizarre the drivers are, because the stories of the drivers are far worse than the patients.
Right.
They're insane.
Okay.
And so that's how I got ILM Transport. And it is like Taxi or The Crew, which was the Kevin James thing a couple of years ago. It's kind of like that, but it's a little more grounded. It's not slapstick. This is based on real life.
Right.
So yeah, that's where I got that idea.
Okay. So let me ask you, if you don't mind, about your latest project I know you're working on, Never Break the Chain, if you're willing to talk about that a little bit. What's that project you're working on?
When I first got back to town, there's always been, I got pals, I got a lot of pals, but I have a different definition of friendship than most people. People have 1,500 followers on any social media account. Yeah, these are all my friends. No, they're not. They're just not. No one has 1,500 friends. I have a total of maybe 8 to 10 people that are my friends, right? So when I got back to Wilmington, I wasn't the same person. I quit drinking.
Right.
And the one thing people weren't used to was me without a drink in my hand.
Right.
I remember the first Christmas party that there's just a little group of us. We have the Christmas party every year. And the first year we were there, Troy Rudisell and his wife, Kathy Rudisell, both of them, within 45 seconds of each other, they had just made this concoction, whatever it was. JR, you got to try this. I'm like, no, I don't. Literally both of them. Kathy said, oh, I am so sorry, and then leaves the room. And then here comes Troy. JR, you got to try this. No, I don't.
Please stop.
Right. And so even with the people that, even now, the people that I'm very close with, I feel like an outsider.
Right.
I was sitting with Michael Jones, who I feel, and I love, Judy is the best musical director for me that I've ever worked with. For me, right?
Yeah.
Judy understands what I do in musicals, and she plays to that.
Right.
I mean this sincerely, the best production of a musical consistently that I've ever seen, Michael Jones. Okay. Michael Jones, from Big, which is crap, Big is crap, but he made it work.
Right.
Ragtime, Jekyll and Hyde, holy God, Jekyll and Hyde was crazy. And then he got angry with the producer and he quit and he won't go back and what have you. I was sitting with him at lunch one day and I asked him, what would bring you back to it? He's like, if it was about us. If it was about us, I might get involved with something like that.
Okay. And
so I'm riding home and in my car, all of a sudden, The Chain is on the radio, the Stevie Nicks song, Fleetwood Mac song. And I wondered if I could take, because it's a sad song. Everyone's like, oh, it's such a cool song. Well, it's sad. It's,
right.
It's the guy's an asshole
right.
to his girlfriend or whatever. I don't know if I can say that on here, but anyway.
Sure.
I wanted to know if I could take the lyric, Never Break the Chain, and make it positive. And so we beat each other up. Yeah, I mean, you read it. We beat each other up pretty good in the script, but we learn that what makes life better, not great, but better, is when we take our problems to the ones closest to us. I've never been exceptionally close to my family. I'm getting closer and closer to my sister here, as we're both getting closer to the grave, but I've never really been close to my family. I've always been closer to Michael and Troy, and you and Susie and Kathy and Ann, and now Brian. Brian's come into our life, and I actually include Brian in the script as a woman. And so I made it about us. And if you go through the script, they all read it.
Yeah.
They all read, and it's them.
Right.
They all read it. The character that you're reading, the reaction that that character would have to something written about them was how they reacted.
Well, there you go.
I mean, exactly how Michael was like, well, this is, sure, okay, fine. And that was it, right? Kathy was like, wow, I don't really act like this. Troy actually, she says this to me. She says, well, I don't really act like this. Troy took a step back, literally stepped out of the conversation.
Right.
So he didn't have to look her in the eye if her eye turned toward her.
Yeah.
And, Troy's always happy-go-lucky.
Right.
And Anne was this big, broad reaction. And then Cassandra, the character of Cassandra is my idea of the perfect woman.
Right.
Because I've been single, forever.
Right.
And so that's what that one is about. I love the Marvel stuff. I love the James Bond stuff. I despise horror. There's not a horror film that I like.
Okay.
But I do love the human experience. The biggest surprise to me was it last year or the year before. It was last year. Because, you had Oppenheimer and you had Barbie. The biggest surprise to me was The Holdovers.
Right.
What a masterpiece The Holdovers. So what a masterpiece that thing is. And it's all about the human experience, right?
And you mentioned those films because I am the unpopular opinion. I wasn't Barbie was Barbie and Oppenheimer. I was not a fan. My review of Oppenheimer was there are a lot of words in the English language and they used all of them.
Right. Even some that are extinct.
And it just was words on words, in my opinion. But again, yes, I absolutely see what you're saying in terms of the heartfelt, more the story, driven from the heart is what I find more compelling sometimes.
My favorite movie, and we're not supposed to have favorite movies because we're supposed to like everything, and I think that's just garbage. My favorite movie is Spotlight. How do you take a real story and make it that intriguing with an ensemble like that? Everyone in that movie is flawless. Right. I think it is the most underrated Oscar winner ever. Yeah. Spotlight is brilliant.
So what are you working on with Never Break the Chain? Are you still working on production, trying to get it produced at this point?
I'm working with Buffalo 8 Productions out of Los Angeles, and the most difficult thing nowadays is just so everything is money driven, which I think you bring up something like Spotlight or even Dope Sick, anything that Michael Keaton is attached to except for the Batman stuff, which I love. Right. But anything that Keaton is attached to, I want to make movies like that. Mm-hmm. To have this guy sit down and read your script, not that I'm after Keaton. Keaton's wrong for Never Break the Chain, but to have someone of that caliber just to read a script, that doesn't happen anymore. Right. That doesn't happen. You got to have, $85 million in the bank. Right. And, it's like pulling teeth. And if you don't have that name, then the money folks aren't going to talk to you.
Right. Right.
So, where do you go?
Back and forth all the time.
Right. And when I'm going to get in a lot of trouble, I'll probably distance myself farther from Hollywood if anyone was vaguely interested in my. The fact of the matter is, you can't tell stories
Right.
with money. You have to tell stories with people.
Yeah.
Billy Wilder, Chris Nolan
Right.
is a, how does he have actors working on this? I Penny Marshall and Nora Ephron stick out in my mind more than anything.
Yeah.
If I could have dropped this script in Penny Marshall's lap, that would have been brilliant.
Right.
It would have been fantastic. Because that's the kind of director that I think the project needs to. I don't want to direct it. I sat in that chair.
Right.
I didn't like what I saw. So like the Billy Wilder, Penny Marshall, Nora Ephron, those kind of, even Gary Marshall, Jonathan Demme early on before Silence of the Lambs. That's the kind of stuff that I really, Alexander Payne, that's good stuff to me. That's just magical stuff because it's just talking heads that give you a story that you can grasp onto, right?
Right.
To me, that's magic. When
is.
you don't have to use CGI and you don't have to use AI, you just use people.
People and just have them be them and be
Right.
real. that is great. Great way to go, in my opinion. I think that's an important part of the genre of film that needs to be out there. It's like I said before, of filling the hole. There is a hole of it, and there's not a lot of it, so we need to fill that hole
Right.
of what's there. So I think it's important that you keep pursuing those angles of like, here are the people. Let's look at them and let's look.
Right. Well, that
Again,
was the whole thing.
I
That was
love
the
all
whole
of
thing with the Christmas Story. The Christmas Story, I didn't want ghosts in the Christmas Story.
right.
So,
Well, what else do you got? Anything else you got working out there that you want to share with everybody? Or
I really do miss being on stage.
Mhm.
Not that not that there's a whole lot out there
right,
for someone of my age. I mean, it is what it is. No one's doing Titanic, so I'm not playing Isidore Strauss.
right, right,
I posted a couple of photos on Instagram the other day, and they were pointed hints.
right.
Now, I'm running out of time with To Kill a Mockingbird,
Mhm.
and Lear. I do truly miss Shakespeare. I miss Shakespeare a lot. Shakespeare to me, to me, I don't care. I've done Macbeth, and I don't care about superstitions. I've done Macbeth, I've done Caesar, I've done The Tempest, and I've done the comedies and what have you. And it doesn't matter if I'm doing the language.
Right.
It's walking through a park with beautiful trees and a light breeze blowing over me. That's Shakespeare's language.
I was having a conversation about this with somebody the other day. We were talking about out of the box thinking in entertainment and teaching the young people about out of the box thinking. And it's something that I hate when, I work in academia. There's professors who talk about it a lot and others, and I keep going, I really don't like that expression around young people. And they're like, wow. I was like, because they don't know what's in the box. Things like Shakespeare, that's in the box. You got to know that before you can think out of the box.
Absolutely. What a great way to put it.
You have to know what's in the box before you can think out of it. Because if you think out of the box without knowing what's in it, you're just guessing. That's what it's called. It's called guessing.
I've gotten to the age now when an actor looks at me and says, I don't like Shakespeare. I have no problem looking at him and saying, you're an idiot. Right. You're an idiot.
And don't
And
tell me
Sherry McKay is still putting on some
right.
wicked stuff out at the lake, just to let you know.
And I, you know what? I can see there is some Shakespeare I'm not overly thrilled with either. But there's something there for everybody. You just have to. You haven't looked. You have to look. The breadth of what's available is so large. You're not looking hard enough. Again, and it is what's in the box in our world. You start there. You
Right.
start. That's your. It's not the only thing in there, but it's the starting point.
Absolutely.
So
I love William Shakespeare.
so. Well, JR, I think we're right towards the end of our time here, and I want to thank you for joining us
Oh
in
man, it's been an honor for me.
having this conversation. I hopefully you had a good time, and I'm sure everybody's going to have a good time. And we'll look forward to seeing some stuff out there in the future with you.
Fingers crossed, man. Fingers crossed.
All right.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you, everybody, for joining us on Half Hour Call. Join us for our next episode. And if you like what you heard, please hit subscribe. And everybody have a good day and keep the faith. Thanks.